What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is the day we finally do it, the 21 class review tier list of all the classes in Conquest of Azeroth. I'm very excited to do this. The way I'm going to be grading these classes is fun, fantasy, leveling, and class potential. I will not be considering PvP at all for any of these placings just because the classes are subject to massive amounts of change, especially heading into Phase 3 when we actually unlock all of our class abilities. So I apologize ahead of time. If you're here for PvP rankings, this is not the video for you. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this video. I'm going to do my best not to stammer or stutter in between these, but there's 21 classes we have to go over. I'm not going to try to spend an enormous amount of time on each one, just to give you guys the idea of where each class falls in place for me. Starting things off with the Witch Doctor. Now, the Witch Doctor, it was like the 6th class I think I leveled. I can't remember exactly what order I leveled these in, but just going off of everything, the fun, the fantasy, the leveling, and the potential for the class, I would probably have to put it in the A tier, not quite S tier. The leveling before you got certain abilities like your hexes and stuff, all the dots, was a little rough. Once you actually unlocked enough abilities between the heals and the dots, you were an absolute monster in the open world. You literally never had to quit pulling, never had to quit casting. It was an absolute blast to play. The power of the class is definitely there. I have seen Witch Doctors heal an immense amount. Even in my own gear, I was able to heal a crazy amount. I think these are going to be really, really good for raids and dungeons. The PvE aspect for DPS, depending on how the other skills play out, I think it's going to have an immense amount of power in a raiding scene. For potential, looking at some of the books, it has one of the highest potentials, I want to say. So definitely high A tier for the Witch Doctor. Next up, the Witch Hunter. I think this was like the 2nd class I leveled to level 30. It's gonna be kind of hard grabbing these things. So I think this is like the 2nd class. Yeah, I want to say level to level 30. So now it is definitely different from when I first originally played it, but just reflecting on how it played, the fun of it was like top shelf. I mean, it was super reactive, super fun, really, really spammy, which I know some people don't like. I like a lot of buttons to press. I'm very fidgety. I play the drums and I've played for years, so having lots of buttons to press is really, really good for my own psyche. The leveling process was really smooth and fast once you unlocked like up to like level 18. It was really, really, really smooth. It kind of slowed down towards the end. You never really felt like you were constantly going up in power. You kind of hit this plateau, I'd say like around level 22, 23 for me at least. The flavor is definitely there though. The melee side of this class was really lackluster when I played it. I understand it's gotten a little bit better, but for a ranged, pure ranged class, it was quite good at open world farming, not so good against elites. For the class potential, I think it's going to just be a consistent, well represented class in dungeons and raids. I don't think it's going to really break any records. I don't think it's really going to be like ultra top tier for rating. I probably have to give it a C. The Venomancer, my first and still probably my favorite class. This class's leveling was just like, it was so fucking rough when it first came out because a lot of classes were suffering from the bug where like higher ranks of abilities weren't actually increasing in power, actually decreasing in some cases. So it was objectively very, very rough. But even in that state, as I unlocked more gear and got more skills, like the leveling, I mean, it's hard to explain if you haven't played it before, but it is probably the most smooth and efficient farmer I think I've ever played in all the 21 classes. The flavor and fantasy is just like almost unparalleled. I mean, you become a spider, you become a scorpion, you can be a Nerubian, you burrow underground, you spit venom at people, you put them in webs, you suck their blood, you put like, you can have dots on yourself that last up to 24 hours. Like, it is just like so mind-blowingly sweet. It was my first character and still probably like top 2, maybe even my favorite class. I absolutely love the Venomancer, and the potential for this class is almost unparalleled. I think in raids, given certain environments with better gear, more stats, and when we actually have ability to unlock everything in our books, I think Venomancer is going to be one of the most powerful classes in the game. Definite S tier for the Venomancer. All right, next up, the Tinkerer, the McDouble special. The class is definitely up there for flavor. It definitely fits the role of being the mechanic. I know there's a lot of people who love playing mechanic type characters, my brother included. He loves playing Torbjorn, I think is how you say that, in Torbjorn, whatever. In Overwatch, those Tinkerer mechanic classes where you get to summon turrets and you use explosives and bombs, and like the high fantasy Tinkerer mechanic class definitely hit the nail on the head. I mean, it was absolutely perfect. You even reload your ranged weapons. You can switch between rifles and shotguns. I'm assuming at some point we're going to get lasers. I mean, later on you can tank in a gigantic mech suit, so I'm really looking forward to that. I think flavor-wise, Tinkerer is definitely up there. The leveling process was a little clunky until you unlocked your turrets. A lot of the power of the class is locked behind the turret, so I wish you would spread it out a little bit more, because before you get that, it does feel a little bit weak, but once you unlock them and learn how to use them, he can kill almost anything if you know what you're doing. The potential for this class, I think, is a little low. Looking through the books that I have, it doesn't have, the abilities don't scream power to me. It sounds like this class is going to be very well positioned as a kind of fill the gaps in type class where you can do a little bit of everything, not necessarily support, but just fill in the gaps between the more focused classes. I would say a solid B for the Tinkerer. Next up is the Sun Cleric, the Paladin's wet dream. This class was fucking sweet. I loved this class. It was such a blast playing. The flavor is the fantasy is so good. You create these stacks of sunshine. So I mean, it's a little cheesy, but when you actually play it, it actually feels really, really sweet. You really feel like a paladin, super connected with the light. Like you're Uther on steroids. I mean, you become the sun lord, a solar lord. You call on the light, you burn enemies, you smite them, you get bastions of light, you fucking turn into a Valkyrie, not physically, but your tank spec is called the Valkyrian Oath or something. Super cool. Flavor is just top tier. The fun is definitely there. The versatility of the class is really high. You can either do strength and agi for tanking and DPS, or you can go spell power, which is how I leveled it. Super versatile in that way. The leveling was smooth. It wasn't blistering fast, but it never felt weak, even from level 2. From start to finish, 1 to 30, it was super smooth. The potential for this class, I think, is higher than the Tinkerer, probably not nearly as high as the Witch Doctor. Looking through some of the book abilities, it doesn't have those really those abilities that scream out immense amount of power. But again, I think this class is going to be super consistent and probably one of the better tanks in the game. I would definitely say A tier. I'm not really sure where in the lineup it's going to be, but definitely A tier for Sun Cleric. So next up, we have the Stormbringer, the elemental shaman on crack. This class is insane, man. The fun is there if you like more simple classes. It might seem like there's a lot of buttons to press, but when it really comes down to it, you have builders and a spender, and it's very intuitive with that. There's not a lot of confusion. You can get more flavor with it as you look through the books, which I'm sure once we actually get into phase 3, you're going to see more of it. But in its current state, it's it has a lot of buttons, but they all feel very basic and not a lot of multi-layer interactions, which I do like. The flavor, the fantasy, I mean, you feel like a thunder god. You definitely feel like Thor. You're throwing crazy amounts of lightning out. It's just it doesn't feel enough different from an elemental shaman in even in Project Ascension. There's just a lot of lightning bolts. You get a lightning orb, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like Orb of Storms from Path of Exile, but the flavor is there. I wouldn't say it's very strong. It seems very basic. I would wonder what the lore for these classes would be, but it seems a little basic. As far as leveling, it's strong. You can definitely blow shit up, but you're very squishy if you don't play this correctly. It is a very dangerous class to play in the fact that if you don't manage your statics stacks well enough, you will fuck yourself over really bad in combat, and I've definitely done that. As far as potential, the AoE potential of this class, I think, supersedes any class ever. And depending on how this class develops as we unlock our books, I think it's going to be like the 1 or 2 class you have in every raid and dungeon to just completely obliterate in AoE. It is ridiculous for AoE DPS. Single target, a little lacking. The potential for the class, I think, is a little bit lower. For overall, I definitely have to give the Stormbringer a C for the overall ranking. All right, Starcaller, excuse me, not Stormcaller, Starcaller, the actual first class I ever played on the Conquest of Azeroth in the very first video was the Starcaller. It was extremely basic back when I played it, but as I re-leveled it, holy fucking shit, this class was amazing. The flavor is a little weak. I think they were trying to capture you being like this warden, this moon warden night elf type thing where you have some like connection with the moon and like the night elf magic, which was like, it was there. It didn't really come across too strong. The fun of it is like top shelf though. I mean, the abilities all feel so fucking sweet to use. The mana stacking, the mana spending, the way you regen your mana, you spend your max mana, damage based on your max mana, all these different things. You heal really well on this class. It's got amazing healing potential. You heal with frost healing, which is like, I've never heard of a class using frost healing. It's crazy. The tank potential is really, really strong with this class. I think it's probably going to rival Sun Cleric for maybe second best tank, maybe close to Guardian. The leveling process was amazing. When you stacked intellect and spell power in this class, he hit like a beast. I mean, there was times I was critting for, I think like 700 at level 20. It was insane. I would say definite A tier for the Starcaller. Like these three are definitely in line with each other, maybe behind the Sun Cleric just for just overall flavor, but high A tier for the Starcaller for sure. All right, Demon Hunter. The fun of the class was okay. The abilities never really felt all that great to use. The only one that was really cool was like the Spender, because you could hit like 4 times, and depending if you've dashed recently, used your like Fell Rush thing, it did a little extra damage. The fun, it was really weak on this class. It really didn't feel super impactful. It always just felt a little like, I never really felt fun, like good clicking the buttons. It was kind of weak. The flavor, I mean, it's a Demon Hunter, and we have them in retail WoW. They did a little bit better job here, I think, with the flavor overall, because you like, it's a little bit more Fellfire instead of like parkour stuff. I don't know. It's kind of weird. The leveling process was slow. It was very, very slow for this class. Way slower than I expected. And I had like twink gear, and he still was just like barely doing any damage. But once you got to like level 25 plus, you could solo groups like 6 elites at once, because he has a high amount of dodge and you can self-sustain through different various means of the class. The potential for this class I feel is very weak. The tanking, depending on how they do like glancing blows and piercing attacks and these things that they have over in Project Ascension, this guy could be a really, really good tank because he has an extreme level of dodge. Like, think about like rogue dodge tanking in TBC levels, like the 103.5 dodging. I think this guy might reach that, but the potential of the class I feel is very weak. It's very basic. It's not super exciting to play, and I might struggle leveling this, honestly, to level 60. It's kind of weak for me. Definitely the first class in D tier for me. All right, we got Son of Arugal next. Now, this class was interesting for me. I understand that a lot of people play this for the Worgen form. It's like, it's kind of what the class was about. That's the whole flavor of it. It's a Worgen. I mean, you get bloody claws, you leech some life. The self-sustain on this class is really strong, so the flavor of the Worgen side is definitely there. The fun is kind of there. There's cooler abilities in the books, which will unlock in later phases, but like, you never really feel like you had a whole lot of abilities. It kind of like, I think I ended up at max level with like 7 or 8 abilities for the form and the non-Worgen form, the human form. So the flavor they did decent enough at. The fun was, it was good. You felt awesome, like self-sustaining like crazy. I mean, you had so much self-healing. That felt good. The abilities, though, didn't really feel all that impactful. They kind of were like, it never had like this explosive moment in combat. You just kind of like got in combat, and then eventually the things around you were dead. And that's kind of how I felt about the Demon Hunter 2. The leveling was consistent. If you want self-leech, self-sustain, and you just want to grind and grind and grind, Son of Arugal is exceptional at that. Super, super good. So if that's how you like to play, definitely look to get the Son of Arugal. The potential for this class, again, like, it's hard because I love melee classes. I'm a melee player. I can't see this class being very good as melee, although the caster form of this class is insanely powerful, so much stronger than the son of like the Worgen form. When I hit level 30, I got spell power gear and twinked him out. He has super high potential in raids because you can cast while moving. He's got some like siphoning blood things where you can give HP to other people, so you can be a pseudo healer. You leech that life back, you have dots. Your main ability hits super hard. The synergy in the caster side, even though I think I only had 6 abilities levels at level 30, felt better than the entire Worgen form and all the abilities there. For this class, if it was just the Worgen class, it would probably be in D tier, but because it has the human caster form, which I think is actually going to be better, I'm going to put it in C tier. All right, next up, Runemancer, immediate S tier, not even close. The fun of this class is mind-blowing. I don't know who designed this class specifically. If you watch this video, you deserve a raise. This class is fucking fantastic. Flavor-wise, it's so hard to judge on flavor because I've literally never played anything like this. You're a true elemental warrior, like a true battle mage. It is so goddamn fun. You're like slinging out these crazy spells that have these insane names. You're generating runes. You're hitting things with like as fast weapons as you can, sending out these salvos of different elements. You've got like all these different interacting systems of buffs and debuffs, and you're like a hybrid melee caster with buffs. And like, dude, this class is just like, it's so hard to fathom who came up with this. You're a genius, man, whoever did. Like 2 million gold stars for you. The leveling process, smooth as fuck. You destroyed stuff, especially once you got to like level 16, I think is what it was, when you start unlocking like Fire Strike and stuff, and you get more of the abilities to generate the stacks of salvo. I was killing like packs of 14 monsters in the open world, no problem. This class is unbelievably strong. The potential for this class, I would say number 2. There's a class later that's probably number 1, but looking at the abilities in Runemaster, given a raid environment with all of the buffs from other classes, I truly believe this class is going to be disturbingly overpowered, and it's going to need nerfs at max level. Top tier class. Runemaster, mwah, perfect. All right, next up, Reaper. Fun, kind of. It is pretty basic. I'm kind of disappointed in some of these classes like the Witch Hunter and these other ones that have like the fantasy of having certain weapons, and they didn't. I understand that it's hard, but they didn't make new weapon classes for these. Now this is like the Scythe class. You're supposed to be the Reaper, like the Grim Reaper, I would assume. The fun, it's okay. The generating, I think they're called like blood shards or something, I can't remember, but the stacking resource for this class and then the spenders kind of felt a little meh. Like, it wasn't exceptionally fun, but it wasn't exceptionally boring. It's kind of just meh, mediocre. The flavor was definitely a little weaker on this one. I was really expecting to like go super hard on like the death theme, where they like would maybe rot flesh away and like eat their corpse and stuff. Like, there was so many elements that could have made it. I understand that these are like core class kits, and I'm judging them strictly on that at the moment for power level. Power level wise, he is a good self heal. I don't know how well he's gonna tank in the end game. He's supposed to be a tank, but I really don't see him filling that role. The leveling process, again, just kind of like the Son of Arugal, was really smooth. You sustained very well, but it just didn't really have that like aha moment when you really unlocked something that was just like insanely strong or insanely fun. It was all just kind of, you hit stuff with a stick. It just kind of didn't really feel that way. The potential of the class is fairly weak. Looking at some of the abilities in the skill books, he's just gonna be another like leech tank type thing, and I think he's gonna be worse at the self heal tanking style than Death Knights in their current form or when they first came out. The class is okay. It's just, again, like the Demon Hunter, it's just super basic to me, and it didn't really grab me by the balls, you know. Definitely D tier for the Reaper. All right, the Cultist. This class was fantastic. I did not expect this class to be as fun as it was. The ability to really feel like you're a cultist of the old god, they really nailed it on the head there. You get these like awesome abilities where you summon like tentacles to deal damage. You deal like a whole bunch of like shadow damage, and there's like, you can link stuff. You just, I don't know, it's just, they did such a good job of really invoking that old god feeling within the class. Super, super fun. The flavor, spot on. I mean, you have so many abilities that harken back to like what you would see in the open world, or what you'd envision an actual cultist in this game would be, because you're definitely like a cultist of N'Zoth. Very, very cool. The leveling was really super weak until you unlocked the ability to summon tentacles, and a lot of them. Like, once you got to the point where you could summon the tentacles, and then your abilities would have a chance to summon tentacles based on like your sanity, was really, really powerful. There was times I'd have like 5 to 6 tentacles out, and you just completely smash shit. The level 30 ability in my video, you saw me just losing my mind, the Visions of Doom. You turn into like this gigantic faceless, and you summon 1 billion of them, and dude, I did like 3,000 DPS at level 30 with this class. It's insane. The potential for this class, I think, actually is probably going to be the best tank for AoE threat, and maybe even single target threat. Maybe a little bit squishier than others, but the tanking potential of this class is probably better than most. I would probably say, if I had to rearrange these, the Cultist probably is going to go ahead of the Sun Cleric. The Sun Cleric's definitely going to go back to where it was in the Star Caller behind all that. Definitely not as awesome of a class as Witch Doctor, not as flavorful, but the potential for this class is super good. Top tier A for the Cultist. All right. Ranger, the better witch hunter, basically. This guy also has ranged and melee, and both of the stances are superior to Witch Doctor in almost every way. His ability to hit very hard at low levels is a little crazy. I was hitting like 200s at level 3. It was insane. The fun of the class is definitely there. It's pretty basic. Kind of like there's some complexity to it, but when you really break it down, it's like one builder and one really, really powerful spender. There's a lot of utility things that the Ranger has access to, both in the ranged and melee side, so that's really good. The flavor, there's really not much. He's just a dude with a bow. Like, he is like the quintessential kill shit with a bow, and if you get near me, I might stab you a couple times. The flavor, like, bottom tier for Ranger, not very much. The lore behind it's probably going to be like, he's a dude with a bow. Yeah, really cool. The leveling, though, was super powerful. Very, 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 very fun. The ability to kill things before they touch you, like his kiting ability while leveling, is unparalleled. I mean, there's people soloing Scarlet Monastery Cathedral level 30 with this class, because you can kite forever. The kiting potential in this class is insane. The overall potential of the class, I feel, is, I mean, he's just going to be a good solid ranged DPS. I don't think he's really going to like be exceptionally like amazing in raids, nor is he going to be very weak. He's not going to really stand out as like, oh man, look, the Ranger's doing all this really cool stuff. He's just going to be a consistent overall good DPS class, going in the B tier behind the Tinkerer for sure. Next up, my boy, the Pyromancer. Man, this class was just, oh my god, the fun and the flavor of this class. I never thought just pushing a whole bunch of fire buttons was gonna be as fun as it was. This class was such a fucking sweet class to play. Like, you melting the flesh off your enemies, it having these crazy overall like dot, and the spreading of the dots is really high potential. The leveling was surprisingly fun. Like, I think I used like 3 to 4 buttons while leveling, but every time I clicked those buttons, it felt sweet. The Pyromancer was just such a solid, well-made class, and even the numbers, even when I played it, and I think it's either gotten weaker or stronger, I can't really tell, was like so perfectly balanced. It never felt super busted. It never felt super weak. It was just like this perfectly balanced, amazing caster. The potential for the class, though, I mean, he's a fire mage. It's not really gonna like, as far as like mechanics, it's going to be fairly simple. He's going to be a high DPS class for sure, and you're probably going to want one of them in your raid at least, because he does provide some really nice buffs and debuffs to the monsters. But for potential, I would say if you like fire mages and you're a diehard fire mage, this is an amazing fire mage. But overall, his potential is a little weak. He's definitely going to go in the B tier for me. Okay, now the Primalist. The first F class for me. Like the Primalist, I wanted to love it so bad, and when I first played it, they actually changed one of the mechanics, which made me a little sad. It used to have like this stacking strength percentage buff that you had to like maintain. I actually enjoyed that over what it is now. I think it's just like a flat attack power bonus. Not as fun. The fun of it was like, it was there. It just felt like you were always 5 levels behind of where you should be on power level. It never really was that strong. The flavor is definitely very high looking at the talent books. You get like 3 to 4 weapon specific stances to use, and they drastically change how they play. I love how this class is based off rage and rage healing, which is like a completely new mechanic to me, and I don't know if any other games have done that, but very, very cool for that way. Good flavor. It felt like a true druid without the shape-shifting forms, so the flavor was definitely there. The leveling was very weak on this class though. When I played it, and I think it was like my 4th class played, I had like decent gear at that point, and it was a struggle, man. You could heal decently well, but it was like not nearly as good as it needed to be. You hit fairly hard, but you never generated enough rage. I know they've addressed it since then, but the rage, if you're a Fury Warrior and you've played and you're rage starved, it is like that to the nth degree. The potential for the class, though, is very high. I think he's going to be a decent tank. I think he's going to be a really, really solid healer just because he's going to have high rage sustain. The DPS, I think, is going to be a little bit lackluster. It really hurts because I did love the idea of the Primalist. It just didn't really land home. I'm sorry. Definite F on the Primalist for me. All right, guys. Necromancer. This class was so stupid. Like in an obnoxious way, so stupidly good. The fun, I mean, you watched my video. Some of you may have watched my video. I was having a hard time not just being in tears laughing about how absurd this fucking class is. Like, you have like 10 skeletons and a flesh golem, and they're jumping all over the place. You got bones, shields, you're summoning undead, you're like sucking the life out of everything. Your abilities just hit like ridiculously hard. So disgustingly strong. The flavor, 10 out of 10. I mean, 55 out of 10. It is like this. If you could go back and make the Necromancer from D2, and I love the Necromancer from D2, into this, he would be the most busted class in the game. And like, oh man, the flavor, just top shelf. Leveling, probably the strongest leveler ever. Like, it was so fucking powerful. I mean, at like levels, I think it was 10, 8 even, I had 7 or 8 skeletons, and I would just use my skeleton rush thing, my zombie rush, and they would kill things in one global before I even got to them. It was so stupidly strong. The potential for this class, almost unparalleled. looking at some of the things in the books, I think this class, depending on, again, how they scale the raids, is going to be, I mean, I think I said it in my video, you're probably going to be doing 5,000 to 6,000 DPS at level 60 with this class. This class is ridiculously overtuned, high S tier. Like, if it wasn't, if the Runemaster and Venomancer weren't so fucking sweet, just on power level, Necro would beat both of them, hands down. All right, guys, we are getting close to the end. What we got next? The Monk. Now, when I played the Monk, I understand they've gotten nerfed, like, I think 7 or 8 times total. When I played the Monk, I played it as spell power. I understand you're supposed to play it as, like, Agi. Fuck that, dude. Spell power Monk was just... It was the first class that I was able to solo Scarlet Monastery Library with, and very easily at that. The fun, man, they nailed the fun of it. It is, man, like, everything about the Monk just felt so good to play. The flavor was definitely there. You felt like if you play Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter Nights or any D&D, and you know how strong monks can get once they get level 16, 18, 20, 22. When you get like Diamond Skin, Flurry of Blows, all these things that make monks just like into a literal god, has it in this version of WoW. Super, super fun. Flavor, fun, amazing. Leveling, so hard to say anything's better than Monk, because when I played it, I would frequently, and I mean very frequently, two-shot elites in dungeons. The runes for this class, the rune generation, and like the spending of the runes, when I played it, way too strong. I mean, way too strong, and I'm okay admitting that. So stupidly strong. It needed a nerf, and I'm glad they did it. Now when I play it, as I've played it some time after I've leveled it, it's definitely still amazingly strong. The potential for this class, I think, is probably not as high as like the Witch Doctor as far as like raid utility and like Sun Cleric for tanking or anything like that. It is just going to be a super consistent, strong melee. And I mean, you're gonna have just these crazy burst combos, so you're just gonna see an immense wall of text and numbers. I think this class is gonna be super fun in raids. Definite A tier on the Monk. Next up, we have the Knight of Zorath. Unfortunately, and I'm sure a lot of people are gonna get really upset, he is F tier for me. When I played him, he didn't really seem to fill any purpose. He just, how can I say it? His fun, he had one fun ability, the Molten Strike, I think is what it's called. The one where you like rain down fire. That was the only ability that I honestly found fun. Everything else just kind of felt meh. It didn't really have a lot of impact. Didn't have a lot of like grab you by the balls attention. I mean, the visuals were kind of over the top, and I think that's probably what's drawing a lot of people into playing it. It just was like so basic. It didn't really feel much different than like a Fury Warrior, or like an Arms Warrior, I should say. The fantasy and the flavor, I think they were going for like the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse, because I said that in my video. And maybe if we unlock more abilities, it would feel that way. But right now, he just feels middle of the road on everything. He just has like an okay tanking ability. He's got mediocre DPS. He's got sort of good sustain. His abilities kind of work together, even though he's really cooldown based, so it kind of interrupts the flow of combat. He doesn't have like a spammable spender or anything, or a builder, I mean. If I were to say to do anything, and I said this in my video, just make him an elemental warrior, like a Templar from PoE. Just make him full elemental and abandon the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse kind of feeling, because it was like a subset feeling, and he just kind of like was always there, and I was kind of wanting more the whole time. It was very disappointing. The leveling, I mean, he's a melee class. Any melee class is going to get the job done. It didn't really have any abilities. I was like, wow, that's crazy cool, or wow, that's so strong, and it just kind of middle of the road. Didn't really impress me. I was perfectly whelmed, I'll say that. I wasn't overwhelmed or underwhelmed. It's just kind of middle of the road. The potential for this class, I can't really seeing it being that useful in raids. It's just another melee DPS, and I don't even think it's going to be that good anyway. It didn't seem like it really fit a role. and I don't think he's gonna scale well into the end game at all. Definite F tier on the Knight of Zorath for me. All right, Chronomancer, the last class to be released for us to play. This needs its own tier. Like, this should be like off the screen, okay? It's definitely going in S tier, and I'm actually gonna move it all the way to the front of S tier. It is so hard to describe how insanely fun this class actually was. The interactions in the class never, it was like the perfect class. It never felt like you needed anything else from what they gave you. Every single ability fit a purpose, and it fit it perfectly. No wonder they waited for everyone to play this, because it needed the time, and they got it so good. The flavor, unparalleled. Next dimension, cool. I mean, you're literally a time lord. You're manipulating time. You're gonna be an insanely strong healer. You're like recovering wounds through accelerating the time on the monsters. You get spells called like Unmake, which just sounds so badass, so much cooler than like rend flesh or anything. You're literally unmaking the target. It is the flavor and the fun and the fantasy. Again, I don't know who designed it. You deserve a raise. Dutch, if it's you, dude, like top shelf, my dude. Liquid, if it's you as well, dude, oh my God, you guys knocked it out of the fucking park with Chronomancer. The leveling, so goddamn strong. I wouldn't say as efficient as, say, like Rune Master, Venomancer, or even Necro, or I mean, even like Witch Doctor. I think Witch Doctor was almost unparalleled as far as leveling efficiency. So leveling, super strong. I mean, very consistent. Arguably too strong. I mean, I think I had close to 500 spell power at max level, which is insane at level 30. Crazy. I mean, that's some people like in tier 1 gear. Like, it's crazy strong. The potential for this class, it is literally top. Like, nothing will even come close to the potential of Chronomancer, depending on, again, how they scale raids and looking at the abilities in this class's spellbook. It is going to be game-breakingly strong. I can imagine there'd be a point where this class has to get nerfed 15 times to bring it in line with some of these other classes. It is going to be, if you want to be a literal god, play Chronomancer in raids. I think it's going to be insane, dude. Top tier S. 7,000 out of 10 for Chronomancer. Absolutely amazing. We're getting there, guys. The final two. We're gonna do Guardian first. Where is Guardian gonna end up? I think Guardian probably gonna be going into D tier for me. So when I first played Guardian, like levels 1 through 10, back before they changed the agility scaling to strength, I would have probably put it closer to B, even maybe A tier. When I played this class, I thought I would like get this preconceived notion from my experiences 1 to 10. Going into it, I was going to be this unkillable just monster. I was going to stomp everything into the ground. I did more DPS than every other class combined. Like, I had such expectations for this class solely based off through my experiences 1 through 10. As I played it more, the fun, I liked the give and take. You had to like use your shield to get a buff, and then once you got hit, you have a reactive self buff or a debuff put on the enemy. Very, very cool. I love those abilities that have that really high interaction. The flavor, though, I mean, he's just prot warrior plus another prot warrior. I mean, he really is just like the prot warrior. I mean, really, and he's just the better prot warrior than I think I've played in any other version of WoW. He's very resilient to physical damage. I'm very wary of how this guy's gonna play out in raids. We'll see. The leveling, I mean, it was good. Again, just consistent. Even though he was a tank, he did enough damage to solo dungeons. Just like every single one of these classes had enough damage to solo dungeons, which is crazy to think about. The potential, a little bit lower. I was expecting it to be really, really high. I looked at some of his abilities. He does have like this gladiator stance though in his books where you unlock his DPS form, where you don't use a chest piece, I think, or maybe a helmet, I can't remember which, and you use like spears and you stab stuff. That itself looks really cool. But what this class is designed for, I think, as far as tanking, he's just a big wall of mitigation for physical, and we already kind of have bears for that. So definite D tier for the Guardian for me. All right, the last one, Barbarian. Let's see here. It's so hard to put the Barbarian D tier. He's gonna go in D tier for the fact that he was fun. I loved the mechanic of like building the carnage stacks. Like the names of the abilities and the flavor of it really lent itself well to being this just overwhelming powerhouse of just physical outburst and damage, and it definitely fits well. It's just, I mean, he is a Fury Warrior with just bigger sticks. I mean, it's just, yeah, like the fun is there, the flavor. He's a Barbarian. I mean, you go smash, right? You're an agility crit DPS melee guy. It's not really anything extraordinarily out of the box, but if you like consistent melee, that might be the class for you. The leveling, pretty boring, if I'm gonna be totally honest. I mean, it's just a melee class with not that many buttons to press. I think I had like 12 abilities at level 30. Very, very lackluster on abilities. I think there was like a time when I was like level 18 to 28. I think I didn't unlock a single ability, and I could be talking out of my ass, but by what I remember, there was like this time where I was leveling, I was like, I haven't unlocked anything in like 10 levels, it felt like, so it's kind of lackluster for there. The potential for this class, depending on how they scale into endgame, they could be a little bit too strong because they do have the stacking carnage thing, which like increases damage based on how many carnage stacks you have. And looking at some of the abilities he has, I have a feeling like when his cooldowns are going, he's gonna smash every one of these classes to pieces, but then he's just gonna be this, you know, kind of mediocre, kind of crappy Fury Warrior. He's definitely gonna be like the mountain highs and like the valley lows. Like he's gonna be peaks and valleys for this class. So if you like those kind of heavy cooldown melee based classes, Barbarian might be for you, but he's definitely going in D tier for me. All right, guys, that's it. All 21 classes leveled and ranked. I would love to hear what everyone thinks about this video. Do you agree or disagree? I know there's probably going to be a lot of hurt feelings because your class didn't quite get where you wanted, some higher, some lower, but that's the name of the game. This is my opinion based on the 150 hours I spent leveling all of these classes, recording, looking back on some of the footage, and really kind of reflecting on my experience playing these. This is where all lands for me. I would really love to see where other people think classes should be, so leave your comments down below this video. I'd really like to hear from other people. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. Subscribe below for more content if you haven't already. I will see you in the next video.